I want my photos to bring people to the world, but I also want my photos to bring little slices of the world to those people. The science of light has always fascinated me. My original draw to photography wasn't art at all, actually, it was science. My name is Dan Sandoval. I'm a photographer that's originally from Los Angeles and have been based in China for the last 10 years. I've definitely traveled more than most Chinese in China. The thing is, for China, there's this huge misconception, I feel, abroad of what China is. And oftentimes, when a foreigner thinks of China, they think of one of two things. They either think the super major high-tech cities like Shanghai or Beijing, or they think of like rice fields and farmers with like, you know, the farm hats. But there's so much more to China. Any major city can be a jumping point to an amazing adventure. So this started out in the Sichuan province when I started working with a few local governments. And what they would do oftentimes is call on foreign photographers to come out, take photos, and they would try to do a photo exhibition or something like that to encourage foreign tourism there. During the 2009-2010 period, we started working, for example, promoting ecotourism and sustainable tourism in Zhezaigo. And so we would go on these like 2 to 3 day backpacking trips, and I would take photos and write a story about, you know, the ecotourism scene. At the same time, we were trying to get people to come and stay longer within that one area, so that instead of just showing up, getting on a bus, and all the money being spent in the park, there were also like homestays nearby being developed, so that the local community was also receiving benefits from that growth in tourism. At one point, they developed a campground just at the base of the national park so that people could go and have a more kind of outdoor experience. Chinese people are now going to these destinations and staying longer. They're doing more off the beaten path experiences. And when I say that, it's also off the beaten path without destroying the environment around there. The first time I traveled to the far northwest region of Sichuan, there's a city known as Litang, which is one of the highest cities in the world. The Tibetan people of the area do what's called the Saimajie every year. It's a horse riding festival. And I was told that the festival itself was happening maybe 2 kilometers outside of the city, and if I wanted to, I could hire a car, and I thought, you know what, it's 2 kilometers, I'll just walk it. It turns out that it was a lot more than 2 kilometers, and I'm walking there at 4,000 meters or so elevation with a big backpack, all my camera gear, a tent, a sleeping bag, and all this stuff, because I intended to stay out there. And I'm walking and walking along, and it's just like, God, why did I decide to do this? It's a really lonely road in the middle of nowhere. And you know, a couple cars go by, and I'm like, no, I just got to do this now. I've already been walking for 2 hours at this point. And it's, yeah, it's just like, you know what, I'm committed to walking. After about 2.5 hours, there's a tractor coming by, and I'm on the last stretches, and I'm like, you know what, I'm done. I'm absolutely done. So I got picked up by these guys in a tractor that took me to the camp, and they started introducing me to some people. I was suddenly a friend of the community, and they'd keep giving me drinks, they'd keep giving me food, and they would just absolutely refuse my money, and I felt so guilty about it. They even invited me to stay within their tents with them, using like their sleeping pads and everything. And I mean, they were beautiful Tibetan tents, but I didn't really want to infringe that much on them. So I had my own little REI tent and my own sleeping bag, and God, I regret it because it was so cold at night. I really should have stayed with them, but you know, I just felt like I was pushing it too much. And if it wasn't for me accepting that, and if it wasn't for my interactions with them on that tractor ride and their introductions to the rest of the community, I probably wouldn't have had that same hospitality. And now I go there every year or two, and I have friends there, and it's the same thing. They invite me to stay there. If I bring some friends, they treat us all as guests, and every year I take some photos for them to have from the previous years, and it's great. I mean, I've gotten some great images from that, and at the same time, great memories and great interactions with people. My first travels took me to local areas in Sichuan, and in the beginning I had huge challenges with the language, but traveling to every destination, I would learn new vocabulary. And so everywhere I'd go, my communication ability would rise a little bit and make my next travel a little bit easier. So the language issue is never really a huge problem when you want to interact with people. The biggest issue is basically taking that first step towards that other person, getting them to be willing to interact with you. There's so many beautiful experiences and memories.